Hi, it's Dr. Jason Granzola from the Tri-Health Wellness Center, and I'm joined by Justin Lee, our registered acupuncturist. Uh, Justin's been working with us for quite a while, and both he and I have a love of TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, and acupuncture, and he has a very interesting technique and spin on how he practices. So I'd like to introduce Justin and welcome him to the conversation.
Thanks, Jason. Yep. So I've been practicing acupuncture for a number of years now, and I find I treat a variety of conditions, and a lot of people aren't always aware of what acupuncture can treat, as well as what it can or how it works, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the most common questions I get because I'll do acupuncture pretty regularly with my patients, and they'll be like, so what is this? Like, how does it work? I've had people ask me, is there medication in the needles? Is somebody just like, is it in the muscle? Is it a trigger point?
Mhm.
And there's a lot of truth, and there's also a lot of misconceptions in it. I mean, how would you explain to a client that's coming in for their first acupuncture treatment, like how it works?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually, and I love to dive into this question because I find it's just such a different concept in that a lot of people come in with the assumption that are we working on nerves or muscles or how exactly are we creating change here? And I have to go back to the classics of what we learned from day one, which is that we look at your body holistically and we look at different types of imbalances in your health as a result of organ imbalances. So what that means is, we'll take anything from, let's say, neck and shoulder pain that you've got on the right-hand side of your body, and we'll diagnose that as, a liver condition, or basically, and if you want to think about that from a Western standpoint, so the liver actually produces protein, it manufactures protein, which goes and does muscular repair. And so if the liver isn't functioning optimally, a lot of times what happens is these ligaments, these tendons are not being properly maintained. And as a result, you get a certain level of pain or you get a tear. And that's where acupuncture can kind of help. Now, how it actually works is in order to target the liver, how we do that is we don't actually put a needle into your liver, but we'll target different points on the body that we would say are connected to the liver energetically. And so we use meridians or acupuncture points, which lie on those meridians, which can then influence the organs to change. And so even in the first session, a lot of people do notice a bit of a change in their level of pain. And, over the course of treatments, what we're really trying to achieve is basically rehabbing that muscle or that ligament back to 100% from the inside out, instead of just trying to say, oh, it's a muscle problem. We're actually looking at it from your body holistically and helping your body to heal holistically.
Yeah, I like how you explained that. And it's interesting, and I'm sure you've seen this is a lot of patients, they'll come in with what seems to be random symptoms that seem to be like disconnected from each other. Like you said, it could be shoulder or arm pain, but they also have pain on the right side or the left side, or they get headaches, or they have like bloodshot eyes, whatever it may be. And they're like, well, these are all just kind of random, unrelated conditions. But in TCM, we start to see a lot of these are much more have a common root or common origin, and or whichever organs are malfunctioning, for lack of a better word, we can see how those are all interrelated.
Yeah, absolutely. Just talking about the liver itself in Chinese medicine, the liver is related to ligaments and tendons, as we've already discussed. But what it's also related to is if you have severe premenstrual cramping, and you're not sure if that's normal or not, because everybody has a little bit of cramping before their period. But if it's pretty serious and it's something that you either have to take a day off or you find you have to take Tylenol or Advil to get it under control, that's a sign that it's probably a little bit of a concern, and it's something that we can help with by focusing on the liver and treating it. Not only would you notice less pain in the ligaments and tendons, but also your premenstrual cramping would be getting better as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, how much of diet and specific like the benefits of certain foods do you discuss with your clients? Because I know that in TCM in particular, food is medicine, and food can be very therapeutic.
Yeah, actually, that's the other side of the coin. So, In addition to the acupuncture, we do give our clients dietary recommendations. And so if we're, let's say, working on the liver, we'll come up with like a detox plan for them, and we'll give them an idea of what to eat more of. So that can be more leafy greens, avoiding alcohol intake, avoiding sweets in excess. So like donuts, chocolate, candies and stuff like that. That stuff all kind of adds more toxins to the liver, which then has a harder job of maintaining the body.
And I think there's a little bit of a syntax or a language that you have to become a little more familiar with when you're dealing with TCM and acupuncture, because there's a lot of terminologies that don't necessarily translate, and it's not so much a language barrier, but it's more of a medical philosophy that's different. So Western medicine is very much based on like if there's a pathology, it could be a disease. There's something that's malfunctioning on like an organ level, or something you can see in measuring blood work. Where in TCM, a lot of the time what we're discussing is, it seems almost like a metaphor. Like it's probably something that could be measured. And in fact, acupuncture points do have a measurable value. They have a galvanic reading, which means it's a drop in electrical potential. But besides that, a lot of times we talk about like heat or toxins or cold invasion, and these are phrases that when I discuss with my patients, they kind of understand. They understand on like a conceptual level, but it's a whole other kind of paradigm. So I find that it's interesting that TCM kind of opens up more connections to health and the interrelation with different symptoms, different organs, even the emotions. So I have always embraced TCM as almost like a translation of what our body is doing in our environment.
Yeah, that's a really good point because, when we go to the doctor, if something does show up on a scan, that's fine, right? And that means there's something they can probably do for it, hopefully, and at least they can see where the problem is coming from. But the thing is, a lot of times, at least in my clinic, people are coming in with problems where they don't necessarily show up on a scan. For example, pain that you could be experiencing, right? And the reason why we explain why it happens like that is because we believe that problems start in the mind or in the spirit and then lead to causing problems in the body. So, for example, an initial problem will start off with pain. And if it's not treated for a long period of time, that pain will start to change. It'll start to shift. It won't be as intense, but you'll experience it still either with movement or sometimes in the middle of the night. And then as that pain becomes more chronic, it'll just kind of be like random, where out of nowhere, you just got this pain coming in and out of your life, but you know where it came from because originally it was some injury you had a long time ago that never fully healed. And then over time, eventually that's when things do start to show up on a blood test or on a scan, where they're going to start to see, oh, your liver enzymes aren't quite right, or you've got fatty liver, or you've got diabetes, for example. And so at that point, acupuncture alone might not be effective enough to kind of create all the change that you need in your health. That's where certain medications or what we use as acupuncturists is called moxibustion. That's where we're burning certain herbs on the acupuncture points. Of course, we're putting it out before it actually touches your body, so we don't actually burn the patient. But this is kind of giving the body a little bit more heat, a little bit of a heat therapy, I guess, is how we could describe it. And what that does is it is actually can drive physiological change. So if someone has something where it does show up on a scan, okay, we've got something for that. And if it doesn't show up on a scan, well, we've got acupuncture for that as well.
Yeah. I like that. The idea if patients could understand that our body is constantly evolving, and a condition is never something that's like from one moment to the next. Very rarely is that the case. Usually there's some kind of progression and evolution of things where people will say, well, I'm fine until I'm not fine anymore. And then there's like you've kind of breached a barrier where now you have a condition, now you have a disease, or you have some kind of abnormality. And it's like, well, where did this come from? And in TCM, it's seeking balance in all the functions of the body, I mean, we talk a lot about the liver, and in TCM, the liver is sort of referred to as the general of the body. It's because it's so integrated in every function of all the major organs. But there's a lot of conditions that are related to the heart meridian or the kidneys, the lung, the spleen. I mean, those are like the top big five that almost all of the functions of the body can be broken down to under one of the governance of those individual organs. A lot of times when someone's coming in for chronic anxiety and stress, a busy mind, restless sleep, I'll start focusing on their heart meridian. So there won't be anything physiologically wrong with their heart, at least not in the beginning. So someone can have long-term anxiety and do their best with it, or they may be on medication or whatnot, and it's something that comes and goes. But invariably, over time, eventually, that what they'll start noticing is that they do have maybe some heart condition. They can have some kind of like a tachycardia, an irregular heartbeat, whatever it may be. And now it's something that is functionally showing up on an EKG. So now we've gone from something that's almost preclinical as a symptom, but there is no diagnosis, there's no mechanical change to the body. But if prolonged and allowed to continue, it does become an actual deviation from the normal state. So your body is changing. And the hope in TCM is that you can recognize these things early enough that you can start, countering those things and start accommodating and making changes so that, the anxiety is less, your sleep is better, your mind is more rested, and it doesn't progress to other things.
Yeah. It's this whole idea and this concept of self-care. Like everybody kind of has an idea of it, but they don't always take it seriously, just like how people don't take stress seriously as being a major factor of influence in their health. And so a lot of times people come in and they're like, is this really just from stress? And, a lot of times it is. You have a stressful week and you'll notice either more pain, bad sleep. And if you have bad sleep, then that leads to more pain, right? And so when people are taking care of themselves, not only do they notice they feel better, but their condition overall improves. And if you've ever been in a situation where it's like, oh yeah, I just needed to sleep it off kind of thing, right? And that's that whole idea. That's the first step in self-care. It's like, okay, you recognize there's a problem, you take care of yourself, and you get better. And that problem wouldn't necessarily show up on a scan. That would be kind of like in the mental, emotional state where it's like you were stressed out, you were angry, or you didn't sleep well. And that's where the mind, when it's exhausted, it starts to show up as a problem in the body as well. But then you take care of that, it's good. And that prevents you from getting to the point where, you've got a chronic disease, which is what we want to prevent here.
Yeah. Prevention is key. I mean, if it's got to the point where it's a pathology, we can do a lot. We can do a lot to, reverse a lot of the effects, and in some cases, really kind of resolve the condition to the best of our ability and the person's ability to heal, which is always like a limiting factor. I mean, depending on what the person is coming in with, if there isn't enough vitality in the person, and if there isn't enough drive to make the necessary changes, I mean, we can't expect big changes from someone that's not going to get the ball rolling and start taking the dietary recommendations and start doing the self-care like you're describing. So there's got to be, the patient has to show that level of commitment.
And it's great when we do have patients that have that level of commitment because we achieve great results. Not only are they dedicated to the treatments, but they're dedicated to making the changes in their lifestyle, which can help, improve certain conditions. For example, digestion, like bloating. Bloating is a common thing that we see. And a lot of times it happens just as a result of being under this chronic stressful state where you're constantly working. You're constantly putting your energy into your work. And so in a way, you're always in that fight or flight, and you're never really going into that rest and digest mode. And so, making that shift mentally sometimes makes a big difference. And yeah, bloating is, a common thing that people deal with, but not a lot of people realize there's something you can actually do about it. So in Chinese medicine, bloating can sometimes be a result of the spleen not functioning properly or the stomach not processing foods very well. So you can say your stomach isn't transforming and transporting nutrients throughout the body. So they're just kind of accumulating, being stuck in the abdomen.
Yeah.
And so with acupuncture, we're just kind of stimulating certain points to activate the stomach again, to kind of get it processing certain foods and you know, eliminating waste properly so that, you know, bowel movements are normal. They're not too loose, they're not too hard. And at the same time, you're not feeling too bloated or having any acid reflux happening
Yeah.
as a result.
Yeah. And sometimes I'll give the analogy to a patient. I'll be like, let's say that um, these points along the body that are connected to organs, let's say there's one that's a bit of a short circuit. It's not making the connection to that organ. So that those needles are actually kind of reinforcing the circulation, if you will. And it's almost like following a blueprint. Your body wants to do what it's programmed to do, but there may be something that's just interfering or is like a hiccup or a bottleneck in the system. So the acupuncture is facilitating what your body is supposed to be doing. It's not overriding anything. It's nothing foreign. It's actually just reestablishing the natural state.
Yeah, yeah. And a lot of times I try to explain, a lot of people come in and go, you know, so how does acupuncture work? And I just explain to them real simple. Like, we're looking at your body holistically and we're diagnosing your problem as an organ imbalance. Then we treat that organ and the problem gets better. And you know, that's where I leave it. But a lot of times they go, that's it? That's all there is to it? Like, there's no like crazy magic going on or something to do with nerves and impulses and blood flow and all that. And a lot of times we want to explain it from a Western medicine standpoint because, you know, Western medicine is considered the modern medicine, right? So in our period, like it's the commonly accepted, it's the latest. Therefore, we just kind of assume it's the greatest. And so always we want to put it from that perspective. Um, but here's the thing, Chinese medicine has actually been around for like over 2,000 years. It's got a history of that. And it was the main form of medicine in Asia up until like the mid 1800s, where, you know, some things changed. There was an industrial revolution, and countries such as Japan were basically, you know, confronted by Westerners to basically say, hey, you guys need to change your systems, or, you know, there might be a little bit of a war here going on. And so literally like countries like Japan had to basically abolish acupuncture in order to accept a new system. And so for the last, you know, 200 years, you know, Western medicine has been the norm. But before that, it was all Chinese medicine. I mean, not all Chinese medicine. There's different types of medicine as well, like Ayurvedic and things like that. But in Japan, like acupuncture and traditional Chinese medicine were a big form of the medical system at that time.
It's interesting because we are under the impression in our society that innovation is improvement, and what we have now is limited, and what was in the past was even worse. But we are trying to change our paradigm, but we're also ignoring a lot of the knowledge that we've gained over thousands of years, and the human body hasn't changed that much in 2,000 years. The organs are still the same. How they respond to different stimulation and different diets is still pretty consistent. It's something that we have record of, and it's something that's reproducible. So we're in a society that's looking for, can I just give me a diagnosis and then give me the appropriate medication so that I can be on my way, as opposed to saying, okay, I know that what I'm doing and my lifestyle and my diet aren't up to, you know, the right standards, because we sort of inherently know when we're doing something wrong and when we're doing something right. But we are inclined to think, let's just kind of keep going the way I'm doing things because it's convenient. And if the symptom can go away, great. There is a disconnect between saying, okay, so I'm not doing something right. Tell me the right way. And if you tell me, and within my means, I'll do it. Most of the time, it's absolutely in the person's means, because any kind of diet program I've given someone, protocols in terms of supplements or exercise, none of it is like excessive. They usually just say, like you said, that's it. That's all I have to do. It's like, well, it's already an upgrade from what you aren't doing. So that's big enough of a step for you to do. If you can start some of these changes, and they're super simple, like they're like, don't do bad things. That's just how basic you can interpret it. And a lot of the times people are like, I already knew that. I knew that, but I needed someone to tell me and to remind me and sort of like make me accountable. And it's in those cases that I find those people are really responsive, because they're already on board, like psychologically. They kind of can reason and logically understand it. Now is sort of that like that that trigger that makes them go, okay, now I'm going to start doing it. And it happens very quickly that once they start, they see a change. They feel better. Now, if I gave you a pill and I said just take this pill and come back in 6 months, it may or may not have any compliance with them. But if they can start eating different, cooking different, shopping different, going to bed earlier, having more downtime, not being fixated on different things in their life, then they start saying, wow, I feel way better. This has already made a huge change. And then the acupuncture and the treatments and the supplements and all that, that's just sort of reinforcing what they had to do. They had to make the big change.
Yeah, actually, once people, like you said, once they start to feel better, they love that feeling again. It's like a feeling they haven't had in a long time because they've almost like forgotten what it felt like because they've always been in the state of stress. So once they do feel good again, people want to maintain that. And the body wants to maintain that too. It remembers that. Once it remembers that, it goes, okay, how can I maintain this? And so the next time, like you go out to eat or something and you're not quite feeling right, you're going to choose an item on that menu that's going to be more in alignment with your body, what your body needs, as opposed to just getting what you always get every time. So if it's like you always get ice cold drinks, or you're always getting, something deep fried, and you know how you felt when you were constantly eating that, when you go out to eat this time, maybe you're going to order something on the healthier side of the menu because you know how you feel now and you know how you want to maintain that going forward. And with acupuncture, basically, we're making a shift in the body. We're readjusting some things, stimulating some points, and we're getting the body to kind of recognize and change a little bit. And then once you feel better, it's like the same kind of concept where you just want to maintain it going forward. And I find like once people have gone on down that path and made the shift, they usually want to keep it that way. And that self-care starts to become like second nature to them at that point, which is great. The path we want to get them on.
Absolutely. I find that a lot of times when you're sort of off the tracks and not following a good plan, you tend to crave what makes you worse. It feeds into that weakness. But once you start and you get yourself on a good plan, you start feeling better and you actually have a conditional change where you want good things. You start craving healthier things. Your preferences are more in line with what's going to make you stronger and healthier, as opposed to before when you would crave those bad things. So people do have a functional change, and it's amazing because it's sort of like you can't put your finger on it, but when I follow up with them, they're like, you know what, I don't like the taste of my, my 2 cream and 2 sugar in my coffee. I just can't have it.
Yeah.
It disturbs me. And they start even moving away from coffee in general. So things change. And if you're committed to it, the response and that you get from those changes, the feedback to your body and how you start to feel, it motivates you to keep going. And so things happen pretty quickly from there on.
Yeah. It's that's pretty much what we do. We try to help people as best as we can, and hopefully we get them to the point where they're in a good place.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, Justin. Thank you. Justin, where
Thanks.
can people find you on social media?
Yes. So actually on Instagram, it's at ACU_SOUL. So that's AcuSoul. And you can also book online at Try Health Wellness or through AcuSoul's website. And yeah, we have a presence online, making it easy for people to access our services.
Amazing. Okay, thank you, Justin. And thank you everyone for watching, and look out for the next video coming up shortly. Thank you.